skip the bakery. These cheese and onion rolls are buttery, flaky, and bursting with flavor. Hi Bowl Bakers, I'm Gemma Stafford, a professional chef with over 20 years experience, and I'm going to show you how to make these delicious rolls at home. We caramelize onions, fold in fluffy potatoes and cheese, wrap in pastry and bake until golden brown. So let's get baking. So the first step you're going to want to do is cook your potatoes. So what I like to do in my house, I always steam my potatoes. My mom did it, I've always done it. You can boil them if that's your thing. And you just want to kind of have them in chunks so they cook faster, and cook them until they're nice and tender. So let me tell you something about potatoes that you use for mashing, something like you use for this recipe. You do russets, or in Ireland you would call them roosters. What you're looking for is a floury potato, not a waxy potato. Waxy potatoes get gluey and they give you lumps. So I know some of you are thinking right now, lumpy mashed potato and it's all gluey. It's because you used waxy potatoes. So you have to use floury potatoes, just like this. You see the way they're kind of dry and they fall apart. So you cook them for around 30 minutes or so. These are lovely and tender. The one potato I don't recommend is something like a Yukon Gold, because that's a waxy one. And I'm going to transfer them into my bowl. Now, I'm giving you all my potato tips today, but as an Irish woman, you can trust me that I know good potatoes. So I'm going to give you another potato tip. And trust me, if you're ever going to get good potato tips, it's going to be from an Irish person. So when it comes to mashing, mash them straight away. Don't let them sit down and go cold, or even like cool down too much, because that's when they can get gluey also. So go in with your masher. I just use a hand masher and mash them like this, just to get rid of those lumps. If you have a ricer at home and like to use that for potatoes, you can totally use that too. For something like this, I always use a hand masher. Lovely, those are our potatoes. So while those are cooling down, we're gonna caramelize our onions, which is really what makes these rolls so delicious. So to caramelize onions, this is something I learned in Ballymaloe Cookery School many years ago. Heavy bottom saucepan, non-stick. To caramelize onions properly, you need a non-stick pan. We're going to turn it on to like roughly a medium low-ish. We're going to add in a little bit of oil and a little bit of butter and our sliced onions. Now, let me tell you something about caramelizing onions from a professional chef. It takes around 30 to 40 minutes. It takes a long time, so you have to be patient. What we need to do is let those onions catch in the pan. They caramelize. We're going to stir them, and all of those lovely sugars that come out of the onions will turn all the onions brown all over. And to do that, and to do it properly, and to really get those lovely sweet onions at the end, you need to take your time. So for this, we're going to be very patient. As your onions caramelize, you don't have to pay too much attention to them, and just give them a stir every so often. Like I said, they actually need to stick to the bottom of the pan to get that caramelization. So you don't need to stir frequently. Often I see chefs adding a little bit of sugar to help caramelize onions, and if you do it correctly, you don't need to do that. And if you feel like your onions are browning too fast, turn down that heat. Like I said, low and slow process. So I went away and made myself a cup of coffee, and then 40 minutes later, they looked like this. Lovely and golden and sweet and absolutely delicious. So because it is a little bit of work to make caramelized onions, I always recommend maybe double or triple the recipe. Get as much onions as you want. And what I do is I use them for pizzas, which they are so delicious with some like blue cheese. Put them in quiche with a salty cheese also, and even have them on top of like green beans or asparagus or something like that. They're really, really versatile. And if you end up with too much, you can always put them in little ice cube trays and freeze them, and then you have them ready to go. These are looking fantastic. Those are all my caramelized onion tips. I have no more for you. Put those guys straight into your potatoes and get everything off that pan. Let those flavors marry together. Okay, lovely. I'm going to let those sit there for around 15-20 minutes, let them cool down a little bit. Then we're going to go add in the rest of our ingredients. So our potatoes have cooled down, and now we're going to add in our other ingredients. Remember, these are cheese and onion rolls. So here I have a generous amount of sharp cheddar. You know, in Ireland, we have delicious Dubliner, which is absolutely delicious. It's salty. We have the best dairy. It makes the best cheese. So a nice sharp cheddar. Then we're going to add in some fresh thyme, salt, freshly cracked black pepper, and a little bit of Dijon mustard. This will really complement the other ingredients and give us kind of a little bit of warmth. And then we're going to mix all these ingredients together. You want to make sure that the potatoes are cooled before adding in the cheese because you don't want to melt the cheese at this point. That is a delicious bowl full of flavor and yumminess. And we're not even finished. We're about to wrap it in pastry. So here I have some puff pastry. I always recommend please buy good quality puff pastry because it makes all the difference. You can make your own puff pastry, but honestly, there's such great pastry available. I just buy mine. So sheets on average come around 10 inches by 12 inches, 12 inches by 12 inches, something like that. And they kind of vary, but my sheet here is around 10 inches by 12 inches. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it down the middle, divvy it up into two. If you need to roll out your pastry a little bit, do so. I don't love rolling out puff pastry because it's rolled ready to use, but if you need to give it a little bit of a tug, then feel free to do that. So now what we're going to do is take the filling and generously pile it up on the pastry, dividing it between the two halves. And just so you know, this filling can be made in advance and kept in the fridge, so you're not doing it all the same day. Do this as evenly as possible. So the reason I'm showing you this recipe now is St. Patrick's Day is around the corner. And this is something that we would be huge fans of in Ireland. Potato, meat, wrapped up in pastry. I have a recipe for sausage rolls that you guys go crazy for. I also have a recipe for pasties, which are more kind of British, that have potato in the middle wrapped up in pastry. They can also have meat. We love food that is, you know, good homemade food on the go. Ready, you know, you buying this kind of stuff in petrol stations in Ireland. Like, it's so crazy, but it's so delicious. Knowing that you guys love my sausage rolls, I thought to myself, I have to show them how to make these cheese and onion and potato rolls. And if anybody's going to show you how to do this, it should be me, right? Because you know I'm going to do a good job. Okay, there you go, divvied up between the two. Now here's what we're going to do. We're just going to take the pastry and bring it up into the middle, like so. Bring that potato all the way down to the edge. By the way, if I didn't say that, let me move mine down a little bit. Bring it all the way down to the edge. Bring it into the middle, give it a little bit of egg wash there to seal. Bring the other side of the pastry up there to meet it. Give it a little bit of a roll on the counter to round it out and just kind of even that filling, like so. And there we have our log. I'm going to do the same thing again on the other side. Bring it up over the filling, like so. A little bit of egg wash to seal the deal. I like this because sometimes with the sausage rolls, you use the fork, it looks a little bit old school. I think this just looks a little bit cleaner. And then just give it a little bit of a roll on the counter to soften out those edges. And then you end up with a lovely seamless pastry, like so. Beautiful. Now I'm just going to trim off those little bits of pastry on the very end so we have nice clean ends. Just a little smidge. So now our seam is on the bottom and we're going to cut them with a serrated knife. Anytime you need to have clean lines, please use a serrated knife. When I see people online using chopping knives, it hurts my soul. So now you can cut these any size you like. If it's for your lunch, you can make them a little bit bigger. If you're doing it kind of like for appetizers for a party, you can make them smaller. I like to do them kind of like meaty. So around 2.5 inches, around 2.5 inches. Which is a nice size for me. That is totally up to you. And then just place them onto your tray. Now, the lovely thing about this is that they can be made ahead just like this. So you can get them ready, put them on your tray, even glaze them and top them, put them in the fridge and then bake them off the next day. So all this work can be done in advance. And you can even freeze them just like this. Beautiful. The last thing we want to do is just egg wash them all over the pastry to give them a really lovely golden brown. We all know that in Ireland we eat a lot of potatoes, but there's a lot of cultures that have different versions of these. Like there's pierogies and there's different types of dumplings. There's like lovely kind of hand pies with potatoes. When I make these, I freeze them and then I take as many out as I want. I put them in the air fryer and I cook them off. And then I have freshly baked ones straight away and I didn't have to do any of the work. Gorgeous, lots of egg wash. Just to make these a little bit extra fancy on top, we're going to put a few nigella seeds on. You can do sesame, you can do anything you want. So like I said, you can pop these into the fridge now and you can bake them off within the day, or they are ready to go straight into the oven. So follow me. Bake your cheese and onion rolls at 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 200 degrees Celsius for around 35 to 40 minutes until they're a lovely golden brown. My timer went off, so let's check on our rolls. These look fantastic. They're a beautiful golden brown and they smell amazing. You can let them cool down a little bit before digging in. I love this recipe because I love savory baking and something that we can have in our lunchbox for brunch. I can give it to George going to school. It's just a great homemade on-the-go snack. It has savory flavors with the potato and the thyme, and then it's a little bit sweet from our caramelized onions. And then imagine all of that wrapped up in flaky, buttery pastry. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. You can have them as is or a few sauces on the side. And if the mood takes you, you can serve it with some Irish stout on the side. The perfect meal. Transport yourself to Ireland on a cold day, which is most days, and imagine yourself sitting in a pub with a pint of stout and one of these warm, freshly baked cheese, onion and potato rolls. I mean, what more would you want? Absolutely delicious. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Stick around. I have lots more Irish recipes for you to check out, lots more other recipes for you to check out. I'll see you back here again really soon.